What's good, everybody? Now, if you've been watching BeerBiceps for a while, you know that I'm a man of science. And science says that weight training is one of the most powerful forms of exercises. Currently, weight training is the love of my life. But the first love of my life was judo. I grew up playing judo. And one of the biggest aspects of judo coaching was free body training. Calisthenics is my first love. And I completely get why calisthenics is such a charming form of exercise. There's something super primal about just using your body to build itself. And that's why in today's video, we're answering the eternal question. What's better for your body? Is weight training more suited to you, or is calisthenics more suited to you? There's only one way to find out. Let's science the shit out of it, baby. Okay, now to be honest, I used to think like this guy.
Yeah, bro, I'll do free body exercises but no weights. I don't want to get bulky and I don't want to injure myself, you know.
Okay, now unfortunately, here's the thing with Indian society. We've grown up in a society where we automatically associate weight training with bulky bodybuilders. We think that going to the weight room is going to make you big, bulky, and it might even injure you. And that's a completely wrong mentality. Weight training is one of the most scientific, most powerful forms of exercises, as I've said earlier. And as I've always said, it won't make you bulky unless you inject yourself with steroids and testosterone. And if you're one of those calisthenics bros who doesn't want to embrace weight training because you think it'll make you bulky, you gotta think again. There's a lot of science that goes behind it. First, you need to destroy what you've grown up hearing and grown up watching in the media and give birth to new concepts in your mind. Listen to science. Now personally, I'm into a style of training called power bodybuilding, which is powerlifting combined with bodybuilding. So we focus on building our strength from the powerlifting and we focus on building our muscles and our physique through the bodybuilding style training. But keep in mind that I also give importance to free body training. I still embrace calisthenics as a form of training. The biggest advantage of calisthenics is that it works your core like nothing else. It makes you strong from the inside. Remember, all your strength is generated from your core, and that's the biggest advantage of it. And of course, you don't need any equipment to do it. It's all free body work, which is very important if you're serious about long-term fitness. And long-term fitness, in my opinion, is all about chasing your long-term goal. And depending on if you're a male or a female, it's likely that you have different goals. Let's talk about female goals first. Now, women primarily are all about that fat loss life. They want to lose weight, they want a thigh gap, and sometimes they want to build a little bit of muscle and gain a little bit of strength along the way. But the primary objective is fat loss. As I've spoken about in all my videos for women, one of the best, most effective, and fastest ways to burn off fat is resistance training. Calisthenics is resistance training. It's free body training. It uses your own body weight as resistance to make your muscles grow. And when you put on that little bit of lean body mass, that little bit of muscle, that helps in burning off fat throughout the year. Just having that little bit of muscle mass increases your calorie cap. So you can have a lot more food, you can burn off a lot more fat, provided you're doing resistance training and you've put on that little bit of muscle. So for women, calisthenics is alright. If you're a woman who's open to weight training, even better. It's gonna get you to your goals faster, but that doesn't mean calisthenics won't get you to your goal. Now that's that for women. But if you're a guy, first you need to understand your own fitness goals. Now for most men, the primary fitness goal is to look good with a shirt on and probably even without a shirt on. And to achieve both these goals, it's about putting on that little bit of muscle mass. Now by muscle mass, I do not mean bodybuilder muscle mass, keep that in mind. I don't mean Salman Khan, I mean Vidyut Jamwal or Ranveer Singh or someone lean like that, someone like Siddharth Malhotra. That's what I mean. Now keep in mind that as a male, you have more muscle mass naturally than women do. And if you want to increase your muscle mass as a human being, you constantly need to challenge yourself. And this is where the biggest flaw of calisthenics comes into play. But I'll come to that later. First, you gotta understand human body types. Now, from an aesthetic standpoint, what makes a man's body look good? It's a combination of having a little bit of muscle mass and having a super low fat percent. Now, depending on your genetics, every single human being is categorized into one of three body types: mesomorph, ectomorph, and endomorph. Let's take a mesomorph first. So mesomorphs are basically people who tend to put on muscle easily and their frame is kind of square shaped. They kind of built like a bull. The best example is probably someone like Mahendra Singh Dhoni, built like a bull. The second body type is an ectomorph. Now, ectomorphs throughout their lives have a super low fat percent. They struggle to put on both muscle and fat. So throughout their lives, they're a little bit ripped. Now, someone like Ishan Sharma is a great example of someone who's an ectomorph. Any skinny bro you have is an ectomorph. Now, ectomorphs and mesomorphs have the advantage of having a naturally low fat percent, and mesomorphs have the added advantage of having slightly higher muscle mass. So for these two body types, you can achieve a good looking physique just with calisthenics. For a mesomorph, definitely. For an ectomorph, you will start looking good, but only without a shirt on. With a shirt on, unfortunately, you won't be able to put on much size. So you'll still kind of look skinny if you embrace calisthenics. But let's talk about the third body type, the endomorph. Now, most of the Indian population are endomorphs. Sachin Tendulkar is an endomorph, Virat Kohli is an endomorph, Ranveer is an endomorph, Shreyas Kamat's an endomorph. All of us have a naturally slightly higher fat percent. When we go into caloric excess, we tend to put on fat more easily than muscle, and our fat percent is very difficult to lower than an ectomorph or a mesomorph's fat percent. And that's a big disadvantage, especially when you're talking about calisthenics related training. Endomorphs do not benefit much, and that's the harsh truth. Now, the reason for this is that endomorphs have a naturally higher fat percent. So for our muscles to show through our fat percent, we need to have a substantial amount of muscle mass. It's very difficult for an endomorph to look good without a shirt on, because it's difficult to put on that amount of muscle mass, especially only with calisthenics. And that's why in this case, weight training is a scientifically better option for endomorphs. But let's dive a little bit deeper into the science of building muscle. Now, as a human being, how do you put on muscle? You put on muscle by challenging your body. You give your body some kind of shock, inflict damage on your body, and when that damage is repaired, the damaged muscle fibers are replaced by stronger, bigger muscle fibers. This is called getting gains. And from a calisthenics standpoint, there's two things you gotta know. The first is that consider something like a bench press, a gymming based movement where you're lifting a rod off your chest. You're using the power of your chest to lift that weight. And in the process, you're damaging your chest. When it's repaired, it's replaced with bigger muscle fibers and you get a bigger chest. Now consider something like a push-up, a calisthenics based movement. What are you doing in a push-up? You're pushing your own body weight off the ground. So you're using your own body weight as the resistive force to build your muscle mass. Now your chest muscle, your pectoralis major, doesn't know whether you're inflicting damage with a rod or with your own body weight. That's the first thing you need to know. Now, unfortunately, a lot of calisthenics bros, and I used to be like one of these guys, think that, a push-up and free body exercises are great for you and are great for your spine. But when we're talking about weights and barbells and dumbbells, they're just all, whoa, wait, what, no. Your muscles just feel the force of the weight that it's pushing. It doesn't know whether it's lifting a rod or it's lifting your own body weight. So effectively, there's not much difference between lifting a rod and doing a push-up. And this applies to other calisthenics-based movements as well. When you're doing a pull-up and you're just using your body weight, there's no difference between pulling your own body weight up and pulling a machine weight down. Your lat muscle just looks at it as a force that it's trying to overcome. That's the first thing you've got to understand. And this is also where the downside of calisthenics comes into play. Now, the downside of calisthenics is that there's a limit to how much muscle mass you can build. Let me explain this a little bit deeper. Now, muscle mass is built when you inflict damage on your muscles. And after a certain point, you constantly need to challenge your muscles if your goal is to build muscle mass. Once again, I'm not talking about bulky bodybuilder muscle mass. I'm talking about basic muscle mass to look good without a shirt on and with a shirt on. Just to look like a fit guy. Now, if you're all about that calisthenics life, and if you've never done a push-up in your life, or if you've never done a pull-up in your life, on your first day, you'll do 2 push-ups or 3 push-ups and you'll get tired. And that much damage is enough to build your muscle. But over time, you're going to get better at push-ups or pull-ups. And eventually, to challenge your own muscle and to build more muscle, you need to do 10 push-ups or 10 pull-ups. And eventually, this number is going to go up to 20 or 30 reps. That's why there's a certain cap in terms of how much muscle mass you can put on through calisthenics. And again, coming back to endomorphs, the slightly fat Indian body type, this much damage and this kind of cap is a serious limit when you're trying to look good without a shirt on or even with a shirt on. And that's where the advantage of weight training comes into play. Now, in weight training, the biggest difference from calisthenics is that you're in control of how much force you're pushing, how much force you're overcoming. If you get better at lifting a 10 kg dumbbell, eventually you can move on to a 15 kg dumbbell and inflict more damage. That's why it's a more practical, more scientific approach to building muscle. I talk about this in my science of weight training. So if you want to know more about that, make sure you check out that video. I'll also link it in the description below. Okay, but once again, keep in mind that I am not promoting weight training. My job is to teach you guys correct science. And if you're still one of those people who wants to embrace calisthenics, if you're very charmed by that lifestyle, I get it completely. I used to be in that mindset. And that's why I'm gonna end today's video, but very soon I'll be coming out with a calisthenics based workout video. Remember, even with calisthenics, with a few tweaks in your whole exercise program, you can put on some amount of muscle mass if you're smart about it. So if you're a calisthenics bro or broette, watch out for that video. But in saying that, keep in mind that you should never be completely shut to a new concept. Don't completely turn your mind away from weight training. Don't be afraid of things you don't know much about. So what I'd suggest is that you educate yourself about weight training. There's